AskReddit by Emsmosa. What's a sound you heard when you were young that you no longer hear? The white noise sound of the TV when a channel had no reception. William Gibson's iconic cyberpunk novel Neuromancer opens on a description of the sky as being the color of a TV that's not tuned to a channel. A comment that stuck with me is how the tone of that scene changes whether you're picturing a staticky grey CRT screen or the HD TVs that replaced them, most of which represented a no-signal screen with bright blue. The absolute obliteration coming from THX intro. The audience is now deaf. Camera flash charging sound. https://www.youtube.com/watch?view3byjjnw4bs . Amazing how you can instantly hear a sound you've not even thought about for years, just by someone saying it. And who would have thought these sounds would be nostalgic one day? Weird waterbed sounds. I completely forgot those existed. I remember wanting one though. The telephone ringing with an actual metal bell, not a recorded sound played through a speaker. Or the sound of a rotary dial. The high-pitched whine of a CRT television monitor. Waving your hand over a dusty TV screen and hearing the static pops while little electricity craters appear in the dust. The ka-chunk of credit card imprint machines. A few years back I was working at a gas station, and some crazy sunspot interference, to quote my boss, knocked out all our electronics. We had to bring out the manual credit card imprinter and it was such an orgasm moment. In elementary school, we'd watch movies on projectors with film reels. So, the sounds of a film projector and also the white screens they'd pull down. The slap 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 of the loose film and when it was done rewinding. Dot matrix printer printing. Other things I miss about dot matrix printing. The ribbon, ink, costing nothing. The printer fucking working. The daily arrival and departure of a steam locomotive. Yes, I'm that old but it was the most satisfying, powerful, unforgettable sound for a little kid. They were like huge living, breathing beasts. Steam engines have always been this magical, mythical thing for me. They were phased out long before I was born and were consigned to museums even when I was a child, so seeing one in action is always amazing to me and hasn't lost any value. As a kid of the 80s I grew up in peak Thomas the Tank Engine times, and was obsessed with trains. Going to places like Crewe when they did their Thomas exhibition with all the exact train models from the show. As a 5-year-old that was like going to Disney World. You're right, they are like big mechanical creatures. They were amazing as a kid but as an adult I find them even more impressive feats of engineering. The UK has some amazingly well preserved old school train lines and steam engines. Dial-up connection. Ding ding ding. That is why I always snark on the internet at night. No one calls. Mayo. Remember falling asleep with the TV on and waking up to that weird colored picture with a beep. Deleted. Call me now for your free reading, Miss Cleo. There is a documentary on HBO Max about all of that. Edit. The documentary is called Call Me Miss Cleo. We lived right next to a huge field and across the road from Lake Michigan, so on a summer night there would be a million crickets singing, and I could smell the lake through the open window right by my bed. Such a peaceful place, just thinking about it gives me the feels. I live on Lake Michigan shore. They are still here. So is the scent. VHS tapes rewinding. CD skipping. I always expect Pretty Fly for a White Guy by The Offspring to skip at the end because that was my favorite song I listened to on my yellow Walkman. The whir, click, whop, click of a cassette player as you rewind, play, FF, play, trying to find the song you want. I remember thinking I was living in the future the first time I had a cassette player that could fast forward to the next song and automatically start playing. I'm old. My mom telling me to wake up and get ready for school. My mom sending the shades up and saying rise and shine and up and at 'em accompanied by blinding light. Nighttime was time to hit the hay and give a kiss. That was long ago and gone forever. The invalid phone number tone. We're sorry, your call cannot be completed as dialed. Also, the sound the phone made when you left it off the hook too long. The CRT warming up when you turned the TV on, and the speakers popping along. Miss that epoxy dust vacuum tube Bakelite smell too. My mom calling me to come in the house for dinner. At the tone, the time will be 6:15 and 20 seconds. Yep. You've got mail. Still there if you use AOL on a browser, like my wife. The sound of a packed arcade and in particular pinball machines. Now I'm middle-aged, I'm seriously eyeing a used pinball machine for my office. Have you checked your local community for a pinball arcade? We have one here in Tampa Bay, and it's fantastic, 100 plus games, most of it pinball. I think it's like $17 to play all day. They run it as a museum, so I think that helps them pay the bills. Worth looking into. Lots of people love pinball. Silence. Tinnitus sucks. They didn't tell me it would get quieter and louder depending on how tired I am. Very little tinnitus in the morning, but by the end of the workday it's just a constant whine. A manual typewriter being typed on. We still use one for labels at my office, and when I have a hangover it sounds like machine gun fire. Rotary phone pulses. The sound of a mechanical cash register. Like a 1930s National. The squeak of bats. I can't hear that pitch so well anymore, and there are fewer bats flying around these days anyway. In the Upper Peninsula of Michigan last summer there must have been multiple dozens of them near the cabin we were staying at. I couldn't figure out what was making this weird little meh noise. Popped out a flashlight, and instantly spotted at least 4-5 of them. Not sure, I can't hear it. But, this isn't marked serious, so I do have a story. One time in middle school we had a sub for science class. He was well over the age of 70. For some reason, there was this weird, high-pitched noise during the independent work time. I think it may have been one of the LED light bulbs. Anyways, one of the kids complained about it, and we all agreed it was annoying. The sub thought this was odd. He couldn't hear it. A few minutes later, it's still going and a different kid complains. Why won't it stop? The sub gets mad at us, complains about us colluding to mess with him, promising us he'd tell our teacher that we made up a sound that didn't exist. The kids were confused why he couldn't hear it. I, as politely as I could, tell him we're all 13 or 14. Maybe he just can't hear it because he's older than us. Now he's livid, as he's yelling at us for making up a noise that didn't exist and calling him old, a 25 or so year old. The sub muttered an apology under his breath. Every once in a while my 90+ yo father takes out his hearing aids to adjust them and they let out a feedback squeal that could wake King Tut, but my dad can't hear it at all. The Game Boy sound. All those random sounds those older gaming consoles make is why I collect them and still use them all the time. I have an old Game Boy I put a new light up screen into, and just putting a game in is just such a satisfying feelings and sound to me. So much nicer than putting a CD in, or even worse just downloading it.